what I think is important for people to understand is that we are just still so early. Like, we are still so unfathomably early, even though it feels like within our little Bitcoin bubble online, everybody knows about it, and the president of the United States is talking about it, and Bitcoin treasury companies are popping up every, twice a day and 3 times on Sundays. But we're still so early when it comes to a total addressable market perspective. Like, there's a Croesus, Jesse Myers has a great chart that he's put out there that's been gotten very popular, which shows this very well. Bitcoin's like a $2 trillion asset right now. And that sounds like a lot. That sounds like a very, $2 trillion is a lot. That's a lot of fiat cuck bucks to fund, that fund the war machine. But then you zoom out a little bit, and it's like the total global asset value is 1,000 trillion. So 2 trillion versus 1,000 trillion, you're talking about 0.2% of the total global asset value is currently captured by Bitcoin. That is nothing.
Hi all, and welcome to the 31st episode of the podcast Store of Bitcoin. And today we have the pleasure to host Walker America, the host of the Bitcoin podcast, known for blending philosophical depth, economic insight, and digital sovereignty to the global Bitcoin conversation. Whether you are discovering Bitcoin or you are a seasoned holder, Walker's interviews provide new thinking about privacy, policy, and personal financial freedom. Let's dive into the mind behind the microphone. Welcome, Walker. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. You guys make me sound so much cooler than I am, but I don't mind it. Appreciate the warm introduction.
Hello, Walker. It was such an inspiring description. Would say, how can not you dream about the Bitcoin?
Now I've got to live up to that now, though. That's the problem. Like, you've set the bar really high. Like, oh boy, I'm going to disappoint myself here.
No, I'm sure not.
Okay, welcome again. Maybe we can start as we start with most of every guest. Maybe it's beginning of August 2025 analysis of the market of what is going so far in Bitcoin, and what do you think will be in this month or next month? And maybe we can also discuss about Bitcoin treasury companies, because it's the topic of these 2 months, let's say.
Well, I'd say this month or next month. Let me preface this by saying I am not an analyst or an astrology for men, aka technical analysis expert.
No.
But like month to month, it's really hard to know. But what I think is important for people to understand is that we are just still so early. Like, we are still so unfathomably early, even though it feels like within our little Bitcoin bubble online, everybody knows about it, and the president of the United States is talking about it, and Bitcoin treasury companies are popping up every, twice a day and 3 times on Sundays. But we're still so early when it comes to a total addressable market perspective. Like, there's a Croesus, Jesse Myers has a great chart that he's put out there that's been gotten very popular, which shows this very well. Bitcoin's like a $2 trillion asset right now. And that sounds like a lot. That sounds like a very, $2 trillion is a lot. That's a lot of fiat cuck bucks to fund, that fund the war machine. But then you zoom out a little bit, and it's like the total global asset value is 1,000 trillion. So 2 trillion versus 1,000 trillion, you're talking about 0.2% of the total global asset value is currently captured by Bitcoin. That is nothing. Like, that is just a blip right now. Like, we're not even to a full 0.25% of the total asset value of the whole world right now. So we're insanely early. I think, if you want me to so that's the long-term view, right? You're still very early. The best time to buy Bitcoin was yesterday. The second best time is today. But if you're looking at, let's say, the next couple of months, I mean, I think that it's hard to make any predictions, and I hate making price predictions, so I won't do that. But what I would say is that there is kind of the Overton window has been blown wide open. I think Trump really did that in a large way. Whatever you think of the guy, he started talking about Bitcoin in a very positive light. Some people may foolishly believe that then Bitcoin is an American Republican thing, but it's not. Bitcoin doesn't care about politicians. It doesn't care about America. Bitcoin is everywhere all at once and cannot discriminate based on your political ideology. Thank God, that's the whole point. But the Overton window is wide open now. Bitcoin is part of the common conversation, but still we don't see, like, if you, I don't know about you guys, but if you talk to your quote normie friends out there on the street, or, you know, you're hanging out with, maybe you're not on the street, you're hanging out in your house, whatever it might be with friends, people are still just, they're not as obsessed with Bitcoin as like the three of us are, or as people on Bitcoin Twitter are. Shocking, right? And so I think everybody keeps talking about, like, oh, the retail adoption isn't here yet this cycle. And I think that that's very true. It's also probably a good thing, because generally once there starts to be a lot of like retail excitement, you know, quote retail, and, you know, everybody and their mother is talking about investing in Bitcoin, well, that probably means we're starting to get a little bit toppy. But I don't know, is this time different? Like, I don't want to jinx things, but the word super cycle has been thrown out by a lot of people. And I don't know. I think that we've kind of crossed into this new era where maybe 4-year cycles don't look exactly like they did before. Maybe, you know, maybe there are still, and there always will be, big drawdowns, big, you know, short-term crashes, but I don't know if they're going to be as dramatic or as violent as they have been before, just because there is so much institutional capital flowing into this asset now. So that's a long roundabout way of saying I have no idea what's going to happen in the next couple of months. I will continue to DCA and move that over to cold storage once I have a large enough UTXO that it's not going to be unspendable later, and you should do that as well. And then in the long term, I'm just insanely bullish because we're so very early, 0.2% of all the wealth in the world right now. And that just means we're barely even getting started right now. So, wow, what a fortunate thing that we're here recording a podcast about Bitcoin and that people are there to listen to it. Because if you are here right now, you are very early.
Yeah, I think you're referring to the latest Michael Saylor post saying, with the winter coat, to say there will be no more Bitcoin winter. I don't know if you saw that. Just posted yesterday.
I did see that one. Yeah, I mean, I think you know, maybe that's, you know, it's because it's like a global warming for Bitcoin, you know, or, you know, there's some cycles that are changing. The magnetic center of our Bitcoin world is shifting. There are solar flares that are warming up this Bitcoin winter, and things are going to look a little bit different, I think, going forward. I mean, look at just Saylor. He's how many Bitcoin now total? MicroStrategy, after their latest purchase, like 620 something thousand. Yeah. I mean, it's insane. And good for him, because he saw early what nobody else in the, you know, public markets did, and he's taken advantage of it. And now you have a lot of people trying to copy that strategy, pun intended. And we'll see. It's there's going to be a lot of buy pressure coming. But that being said, like we saw recently, there's also plenty of sell pressure from OG Whales, the guy who sold 80,000 Bitcoin, which, like, I can't even fathom. I don't think people totally grok the fact that there are a lot of OG Whales like that have tens of thousands of Bitcoin that they've been sitting on since either it had no price or since it had a very, very, very low price. And yeah, it might make sense for them to cash out into fiat for a couple billion, even if we say, you know, well, you know, what are you going to sell your Bitcoin for fiat? Like, you idiot. I don't know. Everybody can do whatever the fuck they want with their money. Pardon my French. Is this a show I can swear on, by the way? Is that okay, or should I censor myself?
No rules.
Good. That was a trick question. I wasn't going to censor myself anyway. But there is an insane amount of OG Whales with a ton of Bitcoin out there, right? We saw this guy dumped 80,000 Bitcoin worth whatever that was, $9 billion. That's nuts. By the same token, he dumped 80,000 Bitcoin. Saylor, around the same, you know, similar time, bought like 21,000 of them. It's only a quarter of that. And somehow the market, you know, we lost like 3% in its fiat price, but the market basically just absorbed it, and like pretty well. So I don't know, like, is this time different? Like $9 billion worth of Bitcoin gets liquidated and we barely budge. Like we just take a quick pause and then we're right back to it. I don't know. Things feel different.
I think the same. Firstly, on you highlight many interesting points. So how early we are, totally agree with our friends who are not into Bitcoin. Actually, it was the quietest all-time high ever. I think it was
Yep.
120K. No one, I think maybe till when we reach 150K, no one or barely no one who is not in Bitcoin will join again. We will keep doing this year. And also, I was playing tennis with a guy who is finishing the master in finance. Not even a bachelor and master in finance. Not even award on Bitcoin. That is best money ever. And now it will be the best financial asset to invest on it, and not even award. So that's why we are early. Some they say they throw the statistic with how many million of Americans own Bitcoin, and it looks like there are many, but if you have $50 or $100, I don't think we should count this. We should count maybe people who have a reasonable amount on Bitcoin to see how many people have started to have a basic or decent understanding on Bitcoin. On the cycle, different, that's a big question. I also have the feeling so many indicators that this cycle looks very different. Also that it's summer, all-time high in summer. It never happened in the past. Generally, summer was always quiet or we had a drawback. And then institutional investors are piling more Bitcoin. But on one other side, I'm a bit skeptical because in 2021, we thought that it was a super cycle. Everyone was talking about super cycle. And then we went from 69 to 16 in 1 year. And it was painful. Like we keep holding, but it was not nice. I still hear healing the scar sometimes, even if we had the conviction, but it was not. And everyone was talking about the super cycle. We go to 100K, but this time it could be different from the institutional investor. Last time it was no institution. They could not enter with ETFs, and also everyone was against. From Larry Fink, the government of US, also Trump itself, they say he believes in the dollar and not in Bitcoin. So there was no chance to have institution. We will see. We will keep doing this year.
Yeah, there's oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if you guys you follow Checkmate. He does like very good on-chain analysis. But one thing that he always consistently says is each cycle is different, but the thing that stays the same is human nature. Like you don't change human nature from cycle to cycle. So there's still, greed and fear that exists, natural human responses. People, naturally want to pile on board when Bitcoin is going up and up and up, and then they get scared and cold feet when it starts going down. And when Bitcoin's at the bottom, people, right when the average person starts selling their short-term hodled Bitcoin is basically right where you reach a bottom, and then you pop back up and you do it all over again. And so it's like, I think that's why, if you can time the market perfectly, and you're much smarter than I am, and you are able to go in there and say, you just buy the bottom and you sell the top, and it's like you're good to go. You're a genius. You're perfect at timing markets. That's not me. So that's why, again, I just DCA because I don't know what's going to happen short term, but I do know that long term, Bitcoin goes up and to the right with volatility, and that's basically what you need to know. It's really that simple. And again, maybe if you got a bigger galaxy brain than I do, you can time the markets. I can't. So I just focus on Bitcoin podcasting and DCA as everyone should. Start as many Bitcoin podcasts as you can.
Yeah, in fact, I remember you were saying the more we have, the better it is for Bitcoin. There's also
for Bitcoin podcasts.
For Bitcoin podcast and for Bitcoin in general.
1,000%. And people think I'm like joking when I say that everybody should start a Bitcoin podcast, but I'm really not. Like, if you look at, you go into whatever finance category of whatever your podcasting app is, doesn't matter. There are so many different finance, either personal finance or investment, fiat type investment podcasts, like countless, hundreds and thousands, like so many. Bitcoin podcasts within our little bubble of being online and a Bitcoiner, you may feel like there are a lot of Bitcoin podcasts, but there are not. Like, relatively speaking, there are very few Bitcoin podcasts compared to TradFi podcasts. So until we have more Bitcoin podcasts than TradFi podcasts advising you to, get these dividend stocks and buy the S&P 500 because it always goes up, when in reality, it's like you're just treading water with inflation by buying the S&P 500. until we have more Bitcoin podcasts than people giving shitty TradFi advice on their podcasts, we don't have enough Bitcoin podcasts. So if you're out there listening, go ahead and start your own Bitcoin podcast. We need more of them. There is so much room for more Bitcoin podcasters.
Yeah, I would say, especially now that we are in a bull market. I mean, going back to the previous topic, where are we? I would say, I mean, we forgot, we overlooked the simple fact that the Fed didn't even cut meaningfully interest rates yet. So what? Although there are some speculation, if you look at the charts, by the time it cuts interest rate, there is like 1 day, 45 days of slow the decline, because the market takes it badly. But then there is usually a big boom, like reaching the top of this market. And then if we think what Michael Saylor said is right, that there will not be another winter, so we got to assume that it's going to follow the liquidity perfectly, and because the inflows on the ETF will be so big that really what retail does doesn't matter anymore, and we potentially could be at that level of inflow where retail really has no minor effect, and that for sure will make a Bitcoin as a mature asset. If I have to think of Bitcoin maturity, I think, of course, less volatility in the short time, but higher prices. If we look at gold had lower volatility in the short time, but if you look at the chart in the last 20 years, it's like the best. It is the best performing asset aside of Bitcoin after S&P 500. And that's where quality stays, in scarcity. So the Austrian economics has been proven right by gold already, which beat the S&P 500. So now Bitcoin is going to beat gold and go higher. So yes, we shouldn't time the market. The only interest I personally have to follow a macro analysis for the understanding the world we are in, understanding the factors which could enhance or create some obstacle in the Bitcoin adoption. But also, if you are a long-term investor, so you want to appreciate if you understand that you're at the bottom. So maybe you can take some more, you can buy some more, and that's helpful. Even if it wasn't planned, sometimes you want to ask your mom, can you borrow me? But yes, everything.
There's no worse feeling than seeing Bitcoin take a big dip and being like, okay, can't wait to buy this dip, and then you're like, but with what fiat? And yeah. I'm very fortunate that my wife is also a Bitcoiner, because there have been times when it's like the bank account is already depleted and I'm like, we got to try to buy more somehow. And if she wasn't a Bitcoiner, I think that'd be a harder conversation. But thankfully she is. So it's just a kind of hard conversation. But hey, the longer you wait, the more you're proven right with that. Yeah.
And talking about the regulatory pressures, which we nowadays we overlook, because there is administration which is in favor, blah blah blah. But this might not last forever. So the regulations can be like the over financialization of the asset, with many ETFs, many ETC, a lot of investment vehicles, funds, etc. Maybe the next mandate or can turn, or if the policy changes, can turn in an obstacle. Do you think that over financialization of Bitcoin in the longer time frame does more harm than good, or is that a risk, or Bitcoin has to date the force to opt out from the risks of financialization of the asset? What do you think about that?
I think the financialization of Bitcoin as an asset was inevitable if Bitcoin was going to succeed and win. Like it would be crazy for us to think that that we could experience hyper Bitcoinization, that we could have Bitcoin be the global reserve currency and the dominant store of value, the dominant medium of exchange across the world. But along the way, it never got adopted by Wall Street or by governments. Like, that would just be insane to think. Like, how do you think that they just ignored it the entire time? Like, no, of course not. So, is the financialization of Bitcoin bad or good? I don't think it matters because it was inevitable. Now you can debate like okay, is Bitcoin getting away from its cypherpunk ethos, right? I think that's a fair question to ask. Are the suit coiners here? Are they now, instead of hoodie, everyone's trading in their hoodies for suits and orange ties, and like, like we're losing what it means to be part of, Bitcoin. And it's like, that's a personal choice. Nobody is making any of us put on a suit, right? Nobody is forcing anyone out there to invest in paper Bitcoin, to invest in Bitcoin treasury companies, whatever. Nobody's making you do anything. You can be as cypherpunk as you want. You can go and buy Bitcoin and hold it in cold storage in a 69 of 70 multi-sig. You can do whatever you want. And that's the great thing about Bitcoin. Nobody can stop you. You can also go ahead and support the incredible developers that are building awesome stuff on the layer 2s and layer 3s, however you want to debate those layers, Lightning Network stuff. But also when we look at eCash and what Kali is doing with Cashew, I think that stuff is really important. I think what's happening over on Nostr is really important when it comes to a communication protocol that is censorship resistant. I think all of these things, these more cypherpunk things, are still happening. And so for anyone who says, oh, well, we're losing what it means to be Bitcoin, with the financialization of it. And like, okay, yeah, that's a fair statement. But the point is that it's all that cypherpunk ethos is still there. You just have to actively go out and look for it, because it's not the loudest, right? And it's not the thing that people care about the most. If there's one thing I've realized from having a Bitcoin podcast, it's that everybody claims that they, want to hear from lots of different guests, and we want to hear about all the technology stuff and all the, we want to hear about all the cool cypherpunk stuff. The numbers tell a different story. And the reality is that the majority of Bitcoiners, not even average people, the majority of Bitcoiners do not actually care about the cypherpunk ethos. They do not care about the cool freedom tech that is being built on the side. They claim to. But when it comes to where they actually put their attention, where they give their time, where they put their eyeballs, it's on grandiose price predictions and Moon Boy Hopium. That's like, you can look, I'm sure you guys can look at your YouTube. Every Bitcoin podcaster knows this. Look at your YouTube views, and you can have an incredible conversation with somebody where you don't even mention the Bitcoin price, and you go deep into some Bitcoin adjacent topic, and it's a fascinating conversation, but the guest isn't very well known, and you didn't talk about price. And so it gets, a fraction of the views that somebody coming on and saying, here's why Bitcoin's going to $5 million in the next month, like with a crazy thumbnail and all of that. Like, people just, most of the time, people want to be fed hopium. And that's okay too. Like, it's a lot easier and triggers your dopamine to cycle through a lot better than thinking about how screwed up the world is and how much we need freedom tech and all of the open source developers who are building it. So honestly, I don't even know how I got into this tangent, but I guess my point is that the financialization of Bitcoin was inevitable. People should be less concerned about that and more concerned about using open source tools that preserve privacy and make freedom go up, FGU, versus only focusing on NGU. And now, by the same token, I think it's Alex Gladstein who said NGU is a Trojan horse for FGU. So number going up as an incredible meme, as something that makes people pay attention, actually makes the freedom go up as well, because it provides more funding for developers. It it brings more capital into this network. Like, these are good things. You come for the money, you stay for the revolution, right? I've been ranting now, but so my point here is just financialization of Bitcoin was always going to happen. What we should really be focusing on is, how do we make sure that we don't end up living in a totalitarian hellscape where Bitcoin is, overly financialized, or is just financialized how it was always going to be financialized, but then we haven't actually supported the infrastructure, this parallel system, to build out the open source tech that is needed for us to resist that totalitarian hellscape. Tools like eCash and Nostr and BitChat that Jack just released, which is awesome. We need more stuff like that. So if you're mad about the state of Bitcoin financialization, go do something about it. go build freedom tech, like, or support those that do, or start a Bitcoin podcast and talk about freedom tech. There's so many things you can do.
Agree. It's true. I also was a good point. This financialization also for me is inevitable. If we want to see Bitcoin becoming the best money used by everyone, surely the government and institution, and even more now. When I was saying the quietest all-time high in the history, if you talk to someone who is not in Bitcoin, they don't care. It's very hard that they care. They will care maybe when someone from the institutional world or the political world will tell them that it's a safe investment, they should allocate 3 or 5%. Unfortunately for them, they need 200K, 300K, 500K. We can make, for some, we can make 2,000 podcasts, but so far it's not someone from the institutional world telling them. Then maybe they will look at your podcast, at our podcast, and another. But they need this trigger, and for that we need differentiation for some. And it's a bit sad because Bitcoin is for everyone, but many they are not there yet.
It's for anyone who is willing to learn, right? Like, yeah. I don't remember who first made that distinction. It was not me. I'm not trying to take credit for it, but the idea that Bitcoin's not for everyone, but it is for anyone. It may have been the guys in resistance money. Maybe could have also been NVK. Honestly, I don't remember. But it's like Bitcoin's not necessarily for everyone. Like it's open to anyone, but you have to be willing to put in the time and learn, right? You have to actually do the work, or you can blindly buy, but you'll probably end up blindly selling too. If you just blindly bought without actually understanding what you own, you'll just become a short-term buyer and a short-term seller, and you'll never turn into a long-term hodler. So.
Totally. Also, in fact, it should be clear is for anyone, but not for everyone, at least in 2025 and the next year. I mean, 15 years, 20 years will be like the internet. Very few people know how internet works, but we all use it. So
I think you're exactly right.
We can now move to the one topic more personal. If you can speak about your journey, firstly, how you moved to Bitcoin, and then what makes you moving from being Bitcoin listeners or advocates to become a Bitcoin podcasters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have not been in Bitcoin for a super long time. Carl and I got into Bitcoin. I mean, the first time I heard about Bitcoin was in 2014 in the Silk Road days. I'd heard about it then from somebody at school. I did not get anything. I just ignored it. I was like, that's cool, nerd. Like, whatever, back to whatever fiat shenanigans I was getting into. I heard about Bitcoin again in the 2017 run up when things were, getting, again, like I'm retail, like, right. And retail hears about things as it's going higher. So I heard about it again and just like ignored it again, but paid a little bit more attention. Was like, maybe I should get some, but oh my gosh, I can't afford a full Bitcoin. So I better buy a couple of these Litecoin things because they're cheaper and maybe they'll be worth as much as Bitcoin someday. And then I'll be rich. Well, they never made it up to where I managed to time the top like really perfectly, like bought a couple Litecoin right at the top. They never made it back up to where they were before. And I sold them, converted them to a very small amount of Bitcoin a couple years later. But I basically, that's why I always have empathy for people who say, who don't get it, like who don't get that you can buy a few Satoshis, right? Because I was literally that person. What kind of hypocrite would I be if I was chastising these people when I literally fell into that exact trap? Because I didn't know, because I didn't even spend 2 minutes to do basic research because I was lazy. And then 2020 rolls around and it was, kind of like partway through 2020 when they started locking things down for COVID, and they started sending out checks to people. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, none of this makes any sense. And then I started kind of slowly going down the rabbit hole, like bit by bit. You know how it is. It's like, it's kind of slow at first, then it picks up steam. And then Carl and I started, my lovely wife, started making content, I think in 2021. I think the first time we were like lurking on Bitcoin Twitter, because it was actually still Twitter at that point. We're lurking on Bitcoin Twitter, just like, following people and whatever, paying attention to the news and, trying to stack what, a few sats we could. And then was, I think, May 2020. We were sitting on the couch one night, and I think that's right after maybe the first blow off top or I don't remember the exact dates, but it's when Bitcoin started going down violently. And everybody was so bearish and everyone was so angry and everyone was so sad and everybody's at each other's throats. And we're like, God, everyone is just a total buzzkill right now. What if we just, I don't know, made like some short form videos and just making fun of like, types of Bitcoin haters? Like, what if we just did that? Like, we've seen all these different archetypes of haters. Let's just make that as a video. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And so the next day we made a little video and put it out on TikTok. We weren't even posting them on at Twitter at this point. And it like went super viral. Like, I think like a couple 100,000 views. And we're like, oh, okay. Like it's kind of surprising. I guess people like this a little bit. And then we started making a couple more videos, and people were liking them and they were going quite viral. And honestly, we didn't even start posting on Twitter for a decent amount of time until TikTok started shadow banning us. I think because we said COVID, or like it was at that time where like if you just like literally if you said COVID, you would get like deboosted by everyone. We didn't get banned. We just like our views went from tens or hundreds of thousands down to like a couple hundred, and it was like, what the hell's going on? Like this isn't worth it. Okay, like let's that's where we basically stopped focusing on TikTok and just started posting on Twitter. And those videos that like we initially had like a joint account that we used for it that Carla was running. Started posting on there a lot. The account started growing, like growing from zero. Eventually she split it just into her account because I already had my own, and I was like, you're running this account anyway, it should just be you. So that's why she's now at Carla Bitcoin, and I'm still Walker America. Still trying to catch her follower count though. She's a bit ahead of me. But long story short, we just decided to like, you can just do things. You can just go out and do things. And if you see a gap in the market, which we did, everybody was just super being big sad boys and taking everything super seriously. And we were like, let's just make fun of everything, including Bitcoiners, but make fun of fiat and everything else. But like, let's make fun of ourselves too, because Bitcoiners are ridiculous. And we just had a lot of fun with it. We didn't do it to make money. I think we only did like maybe one sponsored like video, or maybe two like ever out of hundreds of others. Like that wasn't our goal though. Our goal wasn't to like make money. We were just, let's just make videos and make people laugh and make people smile and hopefully brighten up their day and teach them about Bitcoin if they're not into Bitcoin yet. Because it turns out that like a beautiful woman like my wife singing about Bitcoin or how broken our monetary system is plays a lot better and reaches a lot more people than, let's say, my Bitcoin podcast. So, it was an interesting journey. And then when Carla got pregnant, and our son's like 18 months old now, he's a tank of a kid. He's just a beast. But when she got pregnant, she obviously like took a step back from making videos because we'd write them together and act in them together. But she did all of the post-production, all of the editing. Like I have no idea how to do any of that shit on Final Cut and whatnot. So she was the wizard there. And it took a lot of time, and she was not really wanting to do that, understandably. She wanted to focus on being pregnant and then on raising our son, for which I'm very grateful. And so I was like, well, I can't make these short form videos anymore. She was kind of the best part of those videos anyway. Let's be honest. She was the reason people are turning up to watch them. So what can I do? Well, I should start a Bitcoin podcast. And at first I was going to start the podcast like as a joke, like trolling Bitcoin podcasts. Cause I was like, there's so many Bitcoin podcasts. Like I'll just make a Bitcoin podcast making fun of Bitcoin podcasts. That'll be hilarious. Then I started thinking about it more, and I was like, oh shit, what if I just actually made a legit Bitcoin podcast? Like maybe we do need more Bitcoin podcasts. Screw it. I'll do it. Oops. So I did. And, I don't know, as you guys know, it's a lot of work trying to grow a podcast. Like it is not easy. It's not easy to get people to pay attention. You'd think that with Bitcoin, because you've got this literally once in a humanity event going on, which is Bitcoin coming into existence and basically recapitalizing the world. You'd think people would pay more attention, but it's hard to get them to pay attention. It's really hard. Like you guys know, it's a grind. but you keep grinding and you keep trying to grow. And like, honestly, something I appreciate so much is Bitcoiners are like, as much as we may be quite toxic on the internet at times, I think that's a good thing too. Toxicity keeps us strong. But man, I got to shout out. I've had so many Bitcoiners from around the world like come up to me at conferences and be like, "Hey, man, really appreciate the podcast. Like, it's great." Like I said, they'll also then say like, because they'll see my wife, they'll be like, "Oh, but your videos, oh, they were the best. When are you doing them again?" I'm like, "All right, that's fair." Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes. Thanks. Nice.
It's been a long. Last thing I'll say, I don't know how I got here. Like you just do things. You start doing things, and if you enjoy doing them, I think you're going to do them well. And you try to get better at doing them. You try to improve. You should improve anyway. And somewhere along the way, you find yourself like we were talking just before we got on the live stream here. Like I feel so grateful to have found Bitcoin, one, but then two, to have found Bitcoiners, because I have met people that will now be friends for life that I look up to, that I admire, that I like really love dearly as friends, that I never would have ever, like our paths never would have crossed in the fiat world. It just wouldn't have happened. But somehow in the Bitcoin world, Bitcoin brings great people together. And I'm sure you guys like know this too. Like it's surreal almost. You know, you find these people that are going to end up being friends for life. And how did you get connected? Well, because some anonymous developer created magic internet money 16 years ago, and now here you are. It's like, what are we even talking about? This is insane.
Yeah.
There is one famous meme is one guy saying to Bitcoin, saying, "Oh, you changed my life," and then he say, "I'm just a few lines of codes, but you changed my life. Your economy, philosophy, politics, sociology, human psychology." But with that, yes,
it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about how my life and society in general would have been without Bitcoin. And I see like a flat line of doom and desperation unbelievable, because we have many bad things today. There are wars everywhere, lot of problems, economic problems, for the reason we very well know. But as you said, there are also on the other side now this ecosystem of people which work together to make it better on a common denominator. So yes, it's a gift. I mean, it's difficult to get to the other side because at the beginning, as you said, we all made a lot of mistakes, difficult choices. All this not easy study. That also material before was not that much when we started. Now, if you follow the right people, it's easier. And then, but then, if you do your work and then you gain the knowledge, then it clicks. Then after it clicks, it's all fun. Now, after you are 100% to Bitcoin, you become a maxi, you have only good thing upside. I mean, I don't see any downside, not even our podcast, your podcast, everything. The conference is the product, everything is super funny and helpful at the same time. It's kind of amazing. No job can give you this. There are some, but what really surprised me is the everlasting sense of relief, of happiness, which even if you love your job, I think after many years you feel some fatigue, some difficulty, because it's always the same thing. And the problem is that how the work is normally structured in this society is just the same thing, 9 to 5. The same thing, and then you get better. So the better you get, the more they load you with work, because you. So kind of that here. There's a lot of variety. There are protocols, I said, being born every few months, and then a lot of the ones. It's also there's a discovery phase of Bitcoin, which is just a big starting now, and yes, so I'm really grateful to this environment. What do you think?
We came for number go up, and we stay not only for many other things. That's also.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. So the performance of Bitcoin is an intrinsic technology which has value in the millions of dollars. Then there is the brain of people trying to grasp it, to understand it, and there are the market conditions. So what do you think are the factors which are limiting the adoption, thinking about in the bear markets? It's just human psychology, just say the workforce, which the employment which goes up, for instance, the interest rates, macroeconomic factors, human psychology, or do you think something is missing in the protocol, something which could have been better to make Bitcoin even, maybe it's a technical question, but it's not meant to be something which if you had to improve Bitcoin a bit, not only technically but also like some minor additional feature which could have boosted the adoption. Do you have any idea? I don't think that would mean being better than Satoshi, so I know it's not easy. Maybe there isn't the answer, there isn't. But if you have any, please share with us. Otherwise, you can say something about the economic factors or the human limitations to which makes made the bear market so deep. So, if you want to answer to one of that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like, first of all, I am nowhere near the cognitive power of whoever Satoshi was, and I'm very grateful to whoever Satoshi was for creating Bitcoin, and it's the reason we're sitting here today having this conversation. So like, how lucky are we? I don't know about anything that would have helped to boost adoption. I think that it's like that question of if you could go back and change one, not about Bitcoin, but just generally, if you could go back and change one thing in your life, like what would you change? And my answer is always like, I wouldn't change a thing, because everything that I've done in my life has led me to where I am today, and I love where I am today. I wouldn't change that. You change one little thing, and my son isn't my son exactly how he is today, and I wouldn't want that. I love who he is. My wife isn't my wife. Like, no, I wouldn't change a thing if I could go back. Like, I'll take all the mistakes, I'll take all the imperfections, because those also helped create who I am today. And I think that's the same with Bitcoin, where I wouldn't go back and change anything, because everything that happened led us to where we are right now. And I think that where we are right now is going over the precipice of a really incredible foundational paradigm shift for humanity. And that sounds like a very grandiose thing to say, but we've never had anything like this before. This is a 0 to 1 switch. This is a light switch getting flipped on. We've never had Bitcoin before. We've never, Jeff Booth will make the argument that we've never even had a true global free market before. We know that that's true. Like, of course, there's never been a global free market. Like, even locally, there's free markets are very hard to find, and even in those cases, they're usually influenced by fiat, which if your money isn't, the price of money isn't determined by a free market, then how can you possibly have a free market anywhere else in society? So we're at the point where we may finally, Bitcoin is enabling a global free market of people individually making the decision to opt into this market because it is good for them. That is human action in action. They say, this is good for me. I subjectively value this. This is what I'm going to do. And people do that everywhere. And the amazing thing about Bitcoin is that just by people acting in their own self-interest, everything gets better for everyone. That's not the case with fiat, because it is a distortion of incentives, and that fiat itself can be distorted by those closest to the money printer. With Bitcoin, you take all that away, and people acting selfishly in their own best interests actually benefits humanity versus extracting from it, because you have the productivity of all 8 billion people on this planet going to make everything cheaper and better for everyone else as they compete and drive the marginal cost of production down to zero. So would I change a thing? No, because it's brought us right to this moment, and I think this moment is really fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
So I kind of answered the question there.
No, absolutely. I'm with you. I understand. I agree with you. Yeah.
Also, because looking at the path, there is a commonality among many Bitcoiners. Barely no one, they heard, hey, look about Bitcoin. They study Bitcoin. They say, okay, I'm a Bitcoiner. At the beginning, they just say, yeah, magic, internet money, speculation. Then they come closer. Also, for me, similar. In 2017, I started to buy something, but I didn't know that much. 2018, I sold. That's why I think if I bought also before, probably would have sold maybe after 200%. It will not, without the conviction, it will not stay. And so it's kind of common path. And maybe it's also one of the reasons why not so many new joiners, they don't have so many examples of so many Bitcoiners who really changed their life thanks to Bitcoin. Because most of Bitcoiners that are now, they started 2017, I think, hearing, a part of the one who were earlier. Then in 2021, 22, they started to study. And then DCA started 2021, 22, 23. But the price of now is not in a way, for sure we had great performance, but not still that it is a 1 million, we did 20x. That is really a changing. And for many, I also believe they have to see examples of people who really have overperformance, because the ego plays a big role, because they have to admit to have been wrong so far to buy Bitcoin. Why they should admit themselves why they didn't buy till now, and maybe many they prefer to keep saying against, like fiat. We keep printing, delaying the problem, and the problem will be bigger. The same, I think, happened with people. What do you think?
I completely agree. I think people have it's I guess some play on like the sunk cost fallacy, where you think, well, I'm already, basically the sunk cost in this case is the opportunity cost of not buying Bitcoin when you first heard about it, or when you heard about it next, or when you heard about it next, the Peter Schiff effect, basically, where you're in so deep to being anti-Bitcoin because every time Bitcoin goes up and goes up and goes up, it's a reminder that you didn't buy, and you didn't buy the second time or the third time or the 10th time or the fifth. Peter Schiff is a special case. I think he also has a lot of Bitcoin, but he's playing his engagement bait game. So I see you, Peter. But there are many cases like this where people don't want to admit, like you said, it comes down to ego. Like, I heard about Bitcoin when it was X price. Now it's Y price. If only I had bought back then. Well, because I didn't buy back then, I'm just going to kind of root for it to fail now, because I don't want to admit that I was wrong about it. And really what you should be doing is saying, wow, would have been great if I could. And this is what all of us have done, right? Like, yes. I didn't buy the first multiple times I heard about it. I didn't buy till many years later. It took me like 6 years after I first heard about Bitcoin to actually buy something. That's terrible. But did I say, oh, if I would have bought it back then, I would have, I would have been a bajillionaire. But it's like, no, I probably would have sold it or lost it, like a lot of people did. Very, very few people are like that 80,000 Bitcoin whale where he held from 2011 until now. That's the exception. That's not the rule. And so it's like the best thing you can do is like stay humble and stack sats, right? Just admit that, hey, it would have been nice to get in earlier, but you didn't. And so like, the first time you heard about it would have been the best time to get into Bitcoin, but the second best time is right now, today. So what are you waiting for?
Yes. And it should be also in favor of them at hearing about Bitcoiners that they're the same path. Like they are having now, maybe they heard 2021, they say no, now they are thinking. And if we say, okay, but it was also the same for us. Also, Max Kaiser was saying for him, it was expensive at $1, because there is always someone who bought when it was cheaper. And then you say, well, you bought at 30 cents, it's $1. No, and now it's even worse because it's 120K. There are these XRPs, $3. It looks like cheaper with more potential. And it was like, no.
That is just such an unforgivable scam. And like, I don't even want to give them airtime, but like, dear Lord.
You had, I think, this topic, like, oh, 120,000 is too much, it's expensive.
Yep.
Like, it can do, maybe XRP or any other coin, it's $2. It sounds that it has more potential. And I say, okay, you don't know the market cap and all the rest.
But these are hard things for people to understand, because again, there's like, this is why I empathize with people who don't get it right away. Because like we've all been there, right? There was a time when we didn't get it. And then there was a time where we started to get it. And then there was a time where we went deep down the rabbit hole. We're like, I get it. But then the deeper you go, you realize, no, I don't even understand anything at all. But like, you know what I mean? Like, no one really knows Bitcoin, right? But there's a point where like, these are hard things to understand. We've never had anything like Bitcoin. So of course, people are going to struggle to understand it. It doesn't fit any of their models. They're measuring everything from their existing fiat system. They're measuring everything from a system where the only thing that they've ever known is that they are stolen from at a minimum of 2% per year, because that's what some central banker determined was the optimal amount of theft per year, that you wouldn't really notice it and wouldn't end up rioting in the streets. But really the theft that is coming from you, and I go back to Jeff Booth again on this because I think he's been so solid and changed my thinking on this entirely, is that the real rate of theft from you is the theft of your purchasing power, because everything should be getting cheaper. Every year, things should be getting cheaper, always, forever. Like, because we get more productive, because technology is naturally deflationary. So that means they're not actually stealing when they steal 2% a year or more. It's really more. It's more like 6%, 6.6 to 7% if you look at the compound annual growth rate of the money supply. But they're stealing more from that because they're not stealing from zero. They're stealing from what should be negative. They're stealing from, they take away the gains that you would have had. Like, your money should be buying more every year thanks to technology being deflationary, but they steal that away and then they inflate on top and you're stolen from even more. And I think that for a lot of people in the so-called developed world, where we have pretty fairly reliable banking systems, again, I'm speaking relatively here, like we don't usually have a 50% devaluation overnight like many countries have had for many years. We have it pretty good. And people in that system, when they're measuring their life, they say, like, why would I need Bitcoin? Like, I don't know, my 401k is doing pretty well. My house has doubled in price, which is strange because I haven't done anything to it. Why is my house twice as expensive as it was? That doesn't make much, but they don't think that far. Like, but they don't feel the need for it. And I think my father-in-law, Carlo's daddy, he escaped communism. And I respect the hell out of this guy because he's seen some shit in his day. And one of the things he always says is that the majority of people get smart by force, not by choice. Like, it's very, very few people who choose, like, you know what, I need to get smarter about this. Most people, there is some forcing function, some unpleasant thing that's happening to them where they say, I need to get smart. Like, I need to figure this out. What's going on? I don't want this unpleasant thing to be happening. I need to make a change. But most people, and this is true with everything, it's true with Bitcoin as well, most people just aren't going to give a shit about Bitcoin until the pain gets so great that they look for a solution. Until then, they'll still stay plugged into the matrix.
Yes, totally. Also, we see with institutions, for example, also we are surprised that it's not, now they're coming more Bitcoin companies, treasury companies, but for years, barely no one followed Michael Saylor, at least no one at very well known. In fact, people say, for example, Google, Microsoft, they are good where they are, so they don't need Bitcoin. MicroStrategy, they needed to Saylor said many times he needed to figure it out. MetaPlanet also was not doing good as hotel. They sold hotel and they had to figure it out to survive, and then they look for Bitcoin. So
I think it's such an important point there, like on the institutional side, because you're right. It's the same for individuals as for institutions. And like Saylor said this, and that's why he started identifying these, or helping to identify other zombie companies, basically companies that they were just sitting there, like they're sitting on a lot of cash. They're sitting on a big melting ice cube. MicroStrategy had a very big melting ice cube. What do you do with that when you're not meaningfully growing your business? And I mean, honestly, hats off to him, because like I cannot. It's impressive that he weathered the storm through the bear market and continued buying. I mean, and everybody along the way saying Saylor's going to get liquidated. He's going to sell all his Bitcoin, and it's like. And they were all wrong. And what has he done now? He's scaled up those purchases more and more and more. And like, I want to preface this by saying, like, for the average person, like, if you're listening to this right now, you should just buy spot Bitcoin. And once you get a large enough amount saved, like, so that you have a decent size UTXO, and that's a whole different conversation, but you shouldn't transfer small amounts to cold storage. You should transfer a decent sized chunk. You should transfer it to cold storage, and you should hold your own keys. But now Saylor has, so that's prefacing this by saying, there's no substitute for real Bitcoin, right? Yeah. But Saylor has provided now an entire range of products for people, and not just for individuals, but for institutions, for pools of capital that cannot buy spot Bitcoin for various reasons. And I think that's a great thing. Like, people like to give the guy a lot of grief, but I think he has been a huge positive for Bitcoin. I cannot think of another person who has, in every single interview I have ever seen with him, like, no matter what the interview is for, no matter what, if it's mainstream, if it's, some like super niche thing, he brings up Bitcoin and talks about it in a new way and is constantly ideating around how he talks about Bitcoin. It's really hard to do. And you guys know this as somebody, as like podcasters, like, he's been on literally hundreds of podcasts now. Maybe he's over 1,000. I don't know. It's a shocking number. Yes. I don't know anybody else who has that track record of consistently being pro Bitcoin in every opportunity they get. There's a lot of people who, if they get on like a big, really big, like mainstream political podcast or something, they won't actually talk about Bitcoin, even though they're Bitcoiners, because they don't want to rock the boat. They talk about something else and like dance around Bitcoin. Not Saylor. He's like, starts, continues and finishes with Bitcoin. So like, shout out to the guy, because first of all, he's got balls of steel. And also, I think he's been hugely positive for Bitcoin. Whether or not you think he should have as much Bitcoin as he does, or you think that's a risk, I have a news flash for you. It doesn't matter what you think, because he can buy Bitcoin the same as anyone else. That's the whole fucking point.
Agree. And also, he bought maybe 20,000 Bitcoin in 1 week. Me personally, I will be happier if there would be 20,000 people holding one Bitcoin. But if they are not getting yet, then Saylor is free to buy the Bitcoin that is there. So
we all get it at the price we deserve, right? It's like all these memes in Bitcoin are I think Bitcoiners, this is a sidebar, but I think Bitcoiners are truly a dominant mimetic force. Like, we're damn good at memeing. Like, it's pretty incredible, honestly. But yeah, it's like, we get it at the price we deserve. We all know. We just talked about this. Like, you bought and then sold for probably a nice profit. Okay, you felt like a genius, and then what do? You buy back later when it's higher. Me, I ignored it for 6-7 years, and then only finally started buying once I deserved it, once I took the time. Like, and I think that's the case for most people. Like, there are some that are very rare that are like, I'm not one of those rare people. I'm just a pleb,
Yeah, even Saylor dismissed it in 2013. Then it just bought back later. So when you think you are late or you made a mistake, I think about him, the biggest Bitcoin holder, was wrong. And so how I think about that is that did I really look into the information I had at the time? So did I throw away some free knowledge I had I could have added about Bitcoin, and I didn't want to study, I didn't want to understand more? If the answer is no, you get peace of mind, because it's all, the advantage stays all in the information. So the knowledge, the more you know, the more you study, the more you say you can hold and buy and hold. But information were very difficult to grasp before. And so also the reliability of information, because when I started, I came across in 2017 a piece of blog from an Italian reseller, which was written in a very low quality, and was explaining the halving and say, "Oh, what is this man saying is correct? Who is this?" But it luckily made sense. But still, you are dealing with something which is underground, which was underground. So even if it makes sense to you, there was always the question, I could be wrong. But yeah, given the little information we had at the time, I think I was happy with my choice, and all of us. Now it's different. Now, if you don't want to understand more, with all of the podcasts we have, so then you have a problem. Now,
also the books. There are tens of books, maybe hundreds.
Books. Yes. And now it becomes a choice.
And audiobooks and everything else, and amazing, and so many companies putting out great research as well, which is, I think, is awesome to see. They're spending some of that marketing budget to publish like really good research on Bitcoin and help with education. Like that's really good. And I think you're exactly right, that it's like we're at a point now where there's like, if you have access to the internet and you have a curious mind, there is very little excuse for you, if you come across Bitcoin, to not learn more about it. You can't say, oh, I couldn't find anything good to be able to study it, or I didn't understand this. There's nobody who can explain it. You've got BTC, and you want to learn something technical, you've got BTC Sessions, who's done how many thousands of videos explaining every possible technical thing you could do, walking through it step by step. Shout out to the guy. He's an incredible educator. And one thing I would say too is, like, for Bitcoiners out there, like, do what you can to support Bitcoin creators, or become a Bitcoin creator yourself. Like, because I think every Bitcoiner eventually becomes a Bitcoin educator in some way, whether it's just for their mom and their dad and their brothers and sisters or their friends or whatever. You become your own sort of Bitcoin educator the more you learn, because you evangelize to other people about it. And maybe once they're finally ready to, once they deserve the price, they ask you for help. And so, you're already a Bitcoin educator. You just don't know it yet. You just don't have a podcast yet. But, support this show. Support people like Joe Nakamoto, who does amazing work. And even though he's British, but, I love the guy. Support the big shows like, What Bitcoin Did. Danny Knowles has done a great job of keeping that show alive, and, really just done a fantastic work with it. But support like the little shows too. Support new podcasts that come out. Support people that are just making short form content about Bitcoin. Go watch their videos on YouTube. Go retweet them on X. Go give them a zap on Nostr. If you really find it valuable, like, send them some sats. Use Bitcoin to show you value people's work. I think I speak for myself, but also I'm sure you guys would agree. Like, it means so much when people watch your content, when they engage with your content. If they happen to send you some sats for it, it feels even better, because it's like, wow, you parted with the scarcest money that has ever existed because you liked this podcast, you liked this clip that I put out, whatever it might be. That's really cool. And so, like, but to all of us Bitcoiners, it's like the best thing we can do to in this algorithmically driven world is to help boost each other's content, help to boost small creators' content, because you never know what's going to resonate with each individual person. It may not be this show, it may not be my show, it may not be Danny's show, it may be some podcast that's just on their 3rd episode right now. And it just has to get in front of the right person, and that's going to change their whole life. Like, Bitcoin changed all of our lives. So never underestimate the power of a good podcast, right?
Great message. On my side, we are also approaching 1 hour. One last question for you, Walker. Referring to what you said before, that now they are not feeling the pain, so they were not investing. They are not paying attention to Bitcoin. Do you foresee now the pain will come from one point when the dollar hyperinflate, or the pain will come when Bitcoin performance will be so high that they have to surrender and admit that they were wrong? And then maybe a 200K, 300K, 500K, or maybe it will be a kind of, maybe not dollar hyperinflating, but having 10% per year. That also will make more people think how you envision will happen. I think also we know that at one point will happen. It's not clear what will be the trigger, I think.
It's a great question. I think to set the stage, one thing that people often seem to skate over is the fact that if the dollar is hyperinflating, probably every other currency in the world is already deep into hyperinflation. Like, the dollar is the worst except for all the rest. The dollar is the prettiest horse at the glue factory. The dollar is the skinniest kid at fat camp. However you want to say it, yeah, the dollar sucks, but it's still better than all of the other ones, all the other fiats. It is king fiat. And so if we are at a point where we zap up to the future, the dollar is hyperinflating, that probably means that 50% of the fiat currencies in the world have already hyperinflated and gone literally to zero. If the dollar is hyperinflating, we are at a point where there is massive social, political unrest. Like, we are at a very, very dark and chaotic period. Like, I don't think that, well, it doesn't matter what we want, but like, if and when the dollar goes into this phase, the world is going to be a very dark place for a while. And I think it's important for Bitcoiners to understand that. Like, there's nothing we're going to do to stop it, right? They're going to keep printing money. Fiat's going to do what Fiat's going to do, play Fiat games, win Fiat prizes, but it's going to be a very, very dark period if and when the dollar does do that. And but the euro will be destroyed before the dollar is. Most other smaller fiat currencies will be absolutely obliterated before the dollar is. And so, yeah, I think that would drive a lot of people to Bitcoin, undoubtedly. undoubtedly it would. I think a lot of people will come to Bitcoin hopefully before that, as they watch other, not just in the US, but around the world, as they watch their own fiat currencies trend towards zero, because that's really what's happening, right? It's like we look at it, the average person looks at Bitcoin and sees the number going up, but really it's like the fiat number is going down, right? All Bitcoin is the measuring stick. Bitcoin is the thing that everything else is relative to. We measure it in US dollars or Swiss francs or British pounds or euros or whatever it might be, because that's convenient for how our minds are oriented right now. But that's the wrong way to do it. We just do that out of convenience. The real way to do it is to look at what is the price of a dollar priced in Bitcoin. What's the price of a euro in Bitcoin? Not the other way around. Like, Bitcoin is the last measuring stick. It is the end all be all. And so as we look at all these currencies and all other assets trend to zero or to their marginal cost of production in terms of Bitcoin, I think that, again, along the way, like, this probably follows, like, honestly, a Fibonacci distribution, which is like basically the actual version of a Pareto distribution. Like, Pareto just copied, 80-20. Pareto just basically copied from Fibonacci there with 79-21. But basically, it probably follows that, if I had to guess. And again, I think we all get it at the price we deserve. People that are in countries where their currencies are being destroyed faster than the dollar, which is going to be basically every country, probably except for Switzerland, because they've kept the franc pretty strong, they're going to eventually look for a solution. I don't know when that happens. I don't know what Bitcoin price that happens at, but I know that is what happens, because eventually it's like the pain gets so great that you are forced to make a change. Again, you get smart by force, not by choice. But the great thing is that if you're listening to this right now, you have the opportunity to get smart by choice. If you stumbled across this podcast and you're still listening to it miraculously, even though you're a S&P 500 maxi, you have the opportunity to get smart by choice. What an amazing thing. You can choose right now to freely opt into Bitcoin and not to be part of the mad rush for Bitcoin that happens when eventually, because eventually, this is the thing. It's like, will the dollar eventually hyperinflate and go to zero? Of course, because that necessarily must happen for every fiat currency. That will happen to every fiat currency that exists today. It will eventually fail, unless this time is different when it comes to fiat currencies. I don't think it is. The point being, the currency, if it's a fiat currency, it will eventually go to zero. And it will go to zero in Bitcoin terms much faster. It'll go to zero in dollar terms or euro terms or yen terms, or flip any of those around however you like. It'll go to zero in those terms as well. But it'll go to zero in Bitcoin terms much faster. So the question is, when do you decide to make the choice to freely opt into Bitcoin? Is it while you still have a choice, or is it when you are forced to do so because you have no other option? And all of us here today, we made a choice eventually, right? But it's not an easy choice to make, because it requires you to admit that you don't have any idea how this world works. But the good part is that as soon as you find out how dark and depressing and despairing the world really is under this fiat monetary system, instead of being super depressed and sad, you get to have hope because Bitcoin exists. So huzzah, like you get to be happy about it at the end of the day. I'm sure all of us would probably be super depressed if we knew what we knew now about how dark the world really is, how these things really work, but we didn't have Bitcoin. That would be a very, very depressing thing. So I'm glad we're not in that place.
Yeah.
Great and inspiring. Thanks.
Yes, we said that in the beginning that the introduction was inspiring, so the conclusion would have been the same, and that was.
I'm glad I didn't disappoint.
No, absolutely.
One last short question. How many people do you think they have a good, no one understand Bitcoin like the 100%, because the rabbit hole is very deep, but at the level that we are discussing right now, about philosophical time preference, improving the world and so on, because I think we are very, very, before you said I'm just a pleb, but we are very, very few percent, even if we are pleb, but how many think in absolute number will be? More than a million, less than a million, 100K?
Way less than a million. I don't know exactly. Yeah, way less than a million in terms of understand and then in terms of people that really understand the long-term consequence of what is about to happen. Like, I'm not even sure I understand it. I will happily say, like, I don't fully understand what is happening or what is about to happen. Like, I'm trying to, but then there are people that I think of like Jeff Booth or Eric Kaysen, or American Hodl, to name a couple of them, that like I think see they see further than other men do at this point, and I just try to get up on their shoulders and see what they're seeing. But I think the number of people who like can even identify with this conversation in a meaningful way is still very, very low. It's certainly under a million, like way under a million.
I'm thinking around 100.
That'll change,
maybe.
hopefully.
Change, yes.
But it's never. But it's sorry. I would just one important thing. It's never going to be the majority of people. Yes. The majority of people are stupid. That sounds very harsh, but it's just true. No, it's okay. They're not bad people. They're not stupid in everything they do, but like the majority of people are stupid. Like that. It's just, this is the reality. The majority of people are not going to be intellectually curious. Again, they're not bad people. This is not denigrating them in any way. It's just the reality of the situation. So like, and again, you can probably look at the Fibonacci numbers for this. Like you're only going to have like maybe like 1 or 2 or 3% of people that like maybe are going to operate at this level of understanding with Bitcoin. So again, we're very early, but the total number of people that will be able to go super deep down the rabbit hole is limited, because it's never going to be everyone. It's not even going to be 50% of people. I don't think it gets above 20% of people. That would be very generous as well. It's maybe a couple percent,
yes.
But that's okay, because if you're listening to this and you're like, I get this, great. You are in, you're in the Bitcoin Illuminati. So huzzah.
Yeah, and that resonates very well with this cycle, institutional cycle, because if one of these very few people is a wealth manager, then its effects will fall into thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. So
that's a great point.
Yeah,
having Larry Fink in national TV helped a lot.
we could be surprised. Some of them, they are smart to be there. They should be. I'm sure some of them are. And yes,
to your point earlier, Alessandro, basically, I'm trying to remember exactly how you said it, but like, not everybody needs to understand it at this deep level to benefit from it, right? Like at the internet, like most people don't understand TCP/IP, right? It's okay. They don't have to. Like they can still use the internet and benefit from it and come up with creative ways to profit off of it. Like, so that's okay. Like, it'll be all right still. The Bitcoin is ultimately something that will lift the entire world up, much like capitalism did, but in a much more pure way, without the fiat extractionary system saddled to the back of capitalism like it has been. Like, let's get that fiat monkey off capitalism's back and let it run.
Let us thrive.
Exactly.
Just a few seconds to remind to our listeners that this podcast is sponsored by BitVault, bitvault.sv. I invite you to head over to the site. It's the first Bitcoin wallet solution to solve the problems of physical attacks and hacks, thanks to our time delay over multi-sig technology. The beta is for free, coming out in October. I invite you to head over to the site and leave your email to get notified. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. Then I think we are approaching now more than 1 hour 15. Very great insight and inspiring insight, Walker. It was a pleasure also learn from you on having a successful podcast. So we'll keep you listening to you, and maybe we see then we will see you in Lugano in a few months, maybe.
I look forward to it. First beer's on me.
Okay.
There will be a lot.
Thanks again. Thanks, Francesco, and then. Thanks also to the listeners. Bye. See you next time.
Bye. See you.
Thanks, guys.